HR practice and workplace cultures with the art and power of storytelling. May I have the honor of introducing our guest again, Ms. Kemi Shonibi. You're welcome, madam. Please, can you have the floor?
All right. All right, can you hear me? Yeah, I believe everybody can hear me now. Please, if you can hear me, just signify with a thumbs up in the chat room. Let's be sure that, oh, fantastic. Thank you, Chima. You know, these days of Band A, Band B, Band C by all our NEPA and IE and ADC, wherever you are listening to us from, you need to be sure that everybody's connected. Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Yes, you're laughing. That's the fight that we're fighting this week. Band A, Band B, Band C. And I do hope all of us are finding ways to cope. We'll find who pass through this. Some people say they're on Band W. I don't know what that is, or Band Y. All right, so let's jump into our topic today. I don't know, am I sharing my screen or did the team get my document? I can share, it doesn't matter. Please confirm if I should go ahead and share, or you guys.
You have access to share your screen.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Okay, so let's just hold on. Okay, can you all see my screen? I believe you can.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So let me just get this beautiful thing that's always popping on top of my. All right. We're going to be talking about creating inclusive hiring practices. You know, if AHRP, they've not given you one long topic to talk about, we're not learning shamelessly, you know. So when they send this topic, I was like, you know, when it's not MBA assignment, it's almost as if you are submitting your thesis, right? But I'll try and break it down. It's not as bulky as it looks like. What we're talking about, simply put, is how do I ensure that I am consciously adopting inclusive practices, you know, in building inclusive workplace, and most importantly, how do I, through these inclusive hiring practices, attract global talent? Now, when we're talking about global talent, I'm sure you all know that you can hire people from different parts of the world. You can hire people from different parts of Nigeria. You can hire people from different parts of Africa. But for you to be able to do that, you need to position yourself a certain way to be able to play in that space. So without much ado, I think it's time for us to dive in and start learning. So yes, I see that the numbers are increasing. Thank you very much, everybody. So this is a rundown of the things I'll be talking about. First of all, what is inclusive hiring? What are the benefits? Because it's not enough to say, oh, inclusive hiring, everybody's doing it. What are the benefits to all of us? What are the specific things you should look out when we're talking about inclusive hiring, the component? Then, of course, a brief speech or conversation around how do we attract global talent? How do we foster an inclusive workplace? And then some case studies or some reference materials. And of course, we end the session, of course, with questions and key takeaways. So I guess all of you said you can see my screen. So I'm just going to go right into it. I don't know if you prefer for me to stop my video. Is it distracting, or you like to see my face with my glasses? Let's know which is the preference.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I was saying, inclusive hiring, basically when you're talking about hiring people from diverse backgrounds, that's what it means. We all know what diversity is. Simply put again, diversity is different. People are different and you're deliberate with bringing people with these differences into your organization. So it's the practice that you all will put in place in seeking and hiring different people, diverse backgrounds. When we talk about backgrounds, we all know what I mean. It's not the same experiences, regardless of race, gender. When we talk about diversity, people think it's only female, male. There's so many factors. I refer to diversity as an onion. You know, it has many layers that you peel through. Age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, socio-economic status, meaning that it's not Omo Babalowe alone that you can hire to your workplace. Different people from different economic backgrounds, people that either sponsor themselves to school. I'm just giving some context, or people who are self-sponsored, people who are sponsored by other people, people who got scholarships and all of that, or generally different characteristics. Now, the aim of inclusive hiring for you is that you want to create a workforce that showcases the diversity. You know, we describe when we talk about DEIB, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. However, for the focus of our subject or topic today, we're talking more on inclusiveness from an aspect of diversity. You know, so your goal really is that you want to create a workforce that reflects this diversity. Now, reflecting diversity is not just in paper, because a lot of people say, oh, we have a diverse workforce, but it goes beyond that when you're just ticking the box for box sake, right? And also that you're promoting a culture of inclusion, inclusivity within the organization, right? So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk about diversity is bringing different people to the table. Inclusion is letting everybody on that table be heard, belong, feel that they can contribute, okay? Now, what is therefore the importance is that we can't overstate the importance of diversity, of inclusion, especially in the light of what I've said. And because it brings a multitude of benefits to organizations, employees, and the society as a whole. It is pivotal, we've said that already, because it drives growth for the organization. If you check statistics from different fields, you will see that companies that are diverse and practice inclusive hiring or inclusion as a whole are rated and ranked to be the companies that grow better, they innovate faster, and they are sustainable. I'm sure you all know the meaning of sustainability, that we can continue running the business. So it goes beyond just complying. You know, a lot of people, a lot of organizations, some teams, sometimes, let me not say a lot, but some organizations, some individuals, some professionals are focused more on ticking the boxes, right? They are focused more on compliance. So maybe labor law comes up tomorrow, revises the labor law, and then we're focused more on just complying rather than saying, what is in it for me as an organization? So it encompasses your intentional efforts to recruit, retain, and of course, promote individuals from diverse backgrounds. So let's continue. Now, these are some of the key benefits. And of course, you can always write more in the comment section or the chat room rather. You know, when we say comment section, you know, some of us that when we sit down on IG, LinkedIn, and all of that comment section. Anyways, chat room. First of all, practicing inclusive, hiring, putting in inclusive hiring practices. You have an enhanced creativity and innovation across the organization. So what it means is that you are focused on bringing diverse people, and you're focused on ensuring that everyone has a voice. Every person that you recruit for your organization or you onboard for the organization from the recruitment process has a voice and can add value to the organization by creativity and innovation. And let me use examples. If you go to some organizations or you hear stories of organizations that either have died over time. I was watching a movie, it was this program I watched with my family. It's called Chaser. It's one of the British shows where they ask you questions, quick questions, and it's almost like Wicked Link, almost like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And they were referencing to Kodak. How many of you heard? Well, let me ask the question. How many of you remember Kodak? Maybe I will first know who is in my. How many of you knew or know of a company called Kodak? Just show of hands. Say yes, yes, yes or no. Did you know Kodak? Okay, Ayola, wow, do you want to speak? Your hand is raised. Are you just saying yes, Paul says yes. Okay. So is it the story that you read or you knew Kodak? Yes, I know. Okay. Some are saying yes, yes. I don't know whether yes that they knew. I knew Kodak. Of course, Dr. Michael. Okay, Lanre, yes. I used Kodak. Fantastic. I had a Kodak camera. Fantastic. Now, what has happened to Kodak? What happened? They didn't innovate. They didn't create. They didn't move from, I know Kodak with office around Okpebi, obsolete. I like people that are giving me info. They are extinct, yes. And one of the key reasons, if you go and research, may be possible that they were not open to new practices. You can't give what you don't have. So these days we're talking about Gen Zs in the workplace, millennials in the workplace. We're already preparing for the Gen Alphas. And I tell you, those guys, they are different, right? Now, imagine if we're stuck in a time where, no, the rule says you must be 30 and above before you are recruited into the organization. You've already created something that will block you from accessing a full pool of creativity. I use that example for a reason. Kodak died. There are many reasons that it died, but I can almost bet that one of the reasons was their people management practices, especially when it came to inclusive hiring practices. The next one, of course, is improved decision making. This cannot be overemphasized. When you are deliberate in the quality of people you bring into the organization, especially focusing on the style of hiring, you have a rich, robust, increased database of decision making at a refined level. I will use Nokia also. Nokia too, if you all remember, I'm sure most of us on this call, if you ever had the first phone, was either you had Motorola, you had Nokia, you had Sagem, what was the other one? Alca, was it Alcatel, right? But Nokia is one I'm using in this example. Nokia was caught sleeping. And it's also possible if you dig deeper beyond the fact that they thought they were a big giant, they were here to stay and all of that. They didn't move with the times because they also may have been not conversant with their people management practices, focus on inclusive hiring. Another key benefit will be increased employee engagement and retention. This goes without saying. When people believe that your company attracts personnel with diverse background and they are given opportunities to contribute, what happens in the long run is that I believe that the organization is committed to my retention and I'm engaged continuously. Now, employee engagement is a bigger conversation and it's broader and it has its own pillars and all of that. And then the last one, of course, it gives you a better understanding of diverse markets. So from your customers to your clients, to your clientele, to even a pool of people to hire from. All right. Please just say yes, yes, or a general yes, yes. Oh, somebody says Sajem. I like that. I want to be sure that I'm not speaking to just myself. 3310, yes. Yes, yes, in the room, in the chat room. Let's be sure that we have some energy in the room. I don't like speaking to myself and feel like I'm the only one here. All right, Jessica, thank you, everybody. Yes, yes, so that you've not gone on to be watching something on Netflix and you're supposed to be in class. All right. Now, these are the 4 key components I'll be discussing when we talk about inclusive hiring. So we have unbiased job descriptions, diverse sourcing strategies, inclusive interviewing techniques, fair and transparent evaluation process. So for you to be talking about inclusive hiring, these are the key components you have to put in consideration when we want to talk about inclusive hiring. Please, I need to just put on off my camera a bit. I want to readjust my seating. I noticed that my chair has sunk down. Just a minute. Okay, I'm back. You know, when you have chairs that you and your daughter are fighting over, it moves, it comes down, it moves, and all of that. So we're talking about the 4 key components of inclusive hiring. I've gone through them. So let's now take them one by one. Now, unbiased job descriptions. The first one is you need to avoid gender-coded language. And what does it mean to have gender-coded language? I wrote some things down. Sometimes some of our job descriptions read something like, we are looking for an assertive, competitive, ambitious person, employee who will do ABC. Now, the reality is some of these words have reeled out to you now. If we're going to be honest and look within, they are sometimes attributed to being masculine. So what happens automatically is that, and I'm sure you all know this story or this example most of us use from time to time, where we say that some of our job descriptions, depending on how it's written, some women, once they see, this is also something we're trying to break in terms of breaking the bias for women when we're trying to apply for roles, right? When we see some job descriptions, once we think that we only have 2 out of those 10 line items, we believe some women, I won't generalize, sometimes feel that that role is not meant for them because it is already carved out, speaking to a gender, or maybe I don't have all the requirements. So when we talk about avoiding gender-coded language, such example will also be that you use a job description that says, we're looking for a supportive, collaborative, emphatic, can sometimes be attributed to women. Can you see what I mean when we're talking about avoid gender-coded language? So you need to focus on using neutral language when you are building your job descriptions. Another one, of course, when we're talking about unbiased job descriptions, will be focusing on qualifications and skills. Now, there was a time where, and people still do it, where you will write things like, we're looking for female, we're looking for male, we're looking for anyone 28 years or 35 years and above, or 40 years and all of those things, where you are no more focusing on the qualifications and skills, but you're adding other things into your description. Those are things you need to take away from job descriptions. When we're talking about having unbiased job descriptions, we also need to make use of tools to check for bias in job postings. This also goes into when you have a diverse panel. So your job postings, how do you pick out that there is an undertone of bias indicated in the job description? Like examples I've given, whether we state the gender, we state religion, or we state ethnicity, those things should be removed for you to break the bias, right? Get rid of racial bias. Now, a lot of times when most of us in Nigeria who focus on recruitment only in Nigeria may not experience when we talk about racial bias, but it does come in also when we're talking about ethnicity here in Nigeria, where you are focusing on people from your own geographical extraction. And then you look across the organization, you find out that everybody, in fact, maybe 95% of your workforce comes from a particular geographical zone. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, due to the nature of our organization where it is positioned, we may not have the liberty of attracting a mix of people. However, if you are deliberate about mixing your personnel, then it means that as of the time of recruitment, you also find a way to get rid of racial bias. Now, I've mentioned the diverse panel, which means that you can set up a diverse panel to go through your job description, or job descriptions rather, for different positions. And the job of this diverse panel, these are people from different backgrounds, whether it's age, race, ethnicity, gender, religion, whatever layers you want to use. You put them together for them to review. You will be surprised about the quality of feedback you may get in fixing your job descriptions, right? One of the other things is making sure that you describe your company culture in using inclusive language. So let me use an example. You will see some job descriptions that says we're looking for talented young entrepreneurs. What that already means to many people is that 40 years and above should not even apply. We're looking for up and coming individuals. Some other parts will even be recent college graduates. Now, don't get me wrong. You may have an internship you're trying to fill. There may be particular set of people that fit into that criteria. So how do you describe your company culture in the inclusive language? Because people perceive your company culture from outside. People perceive your company culture through your job descriptions. So let me use another one. Are you trying to show that you're a family oriented organization? You're very focused on wellness and well-being. So in your job descriptions, are you saying things like family environment, close-knit, a culture that values diversity and equity? So these are the pointers on having an unbiased job description. I believe we can move on. Yeah. Okay. So the next one under the components of inclusive hiring practices, we'll be talking about having a diverse sourcing strategies. For you to say that you are focusing on inclusive hiring, there are specific strategies that you must adopt, for you to be committed to inclusive hiring. Now, the image on the right, as you can see, is from Academy to Innovate HR. And what you can see there is explore LinkedIn Recruiter, create and maintain a sourcing pipeline, create an ideal candidate's persona, optimize your careers page. Some of us across our organizations, the careers page, last time it was updated was maybe 2019. There is no continuous and consistent engagement on the career page to be sure that the roles that advertise there, if you're still hiring, are valid, are current, are not extinct, and that your job descriptions are reflective of what you are looking for. Think of your customers as potential candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure some of you may have experienced this. People that you have engaged with as customers, as clients, sometimes are the ones who refer other persons to your organizations because of the interaction they've had with your brand. Also, consider internal candidates. And some of the things I wrote on the left is that you partner with diverse organizations and job boards. Some of us, when we're recruiting, we use all sorts of platforms to push out our recruitment or even the job ads. So from LinkedIn to Indeed.com to JobMag to there's so many of them that we use, right? So you need to partner with such diverse organizations and share, sort of your JDs there. We also need to attend diverse job fairs and networking events. These are places where you would reach out to a diverse mix of candidates. Now, let me share a personal story. Some years ago, some of us partnered with Lagos State in this project that was being run with universities in Lagos, preparing students who were in their final year for the workplace. So they went through a 13-week training session, and then The last week, we had companies across different industries, startups, one-man business, conglomerates, and all what have you, coming to the job fair. If my count or if I recall properly, we had over 100 companies represented at those types of fairs. Now, one of the companies, Total, I remember it was even Total, had a lot of candidates in front of it. You know, everybody wants to work in oil and gas. Everybody wants an experience in oil and gas. And some of my students came to meet me. Oh, Ma, come and help us put a good word. So I went there and I just saw this huge crowd. So some of them, I told them, I said, guys, you have other companies that are offering, better opportunities in terms of even they have a huge number of people they can take on board. No, we want Total. So when the team from Total had done all their paperwork and they were now ready to engage the students, one of the first things they said was, ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to interview all of you. So everybody was like, why? And they said, we have a mandate this year to go and look for people living with disabilities. So those are the ones we are going to attend to at this fair. I'm just using that example that you will have a diverse mix of people, both at job fairs and networking events. And that's how you can attract. That's how you are now committed to saying, oh, I am being deliberate in inclusive hiring. Of course, you also leverage social media and online platforms. These are some of the sources where you get people. I can't say don't mind me about Twitter. Twitter is a jungle. I always joke about it, but Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, which is why we talk about branding and how you position yourself. So these are platforms that any hiring manager can also leverage in getting a diverse mix of personnel. Let's go on to the third key component. Please, I hope we're all together. Yes, fantastic. I have more people in the room. So the third component will be inclusive interviewing techniques. So we first spoke about unbiased, creating unbiased job descriptions. The second one was that we want to build, we mentioned building a diverse, sourcing strategy across board. Now, the third one is inclusive interviewing techniques. So all your interviewers must be trained on unconscious bias. Let me use an example. More recently, if I think it was 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, my team are in the process of recruiting some roles for some departments. So when I was asking questions about the first level interview they did, one of the things I identified and I quickly gave them feedback on, I confirmed that there were 5 people in an interview and they were all men. Now, you may say, there's nothing there now, Kemi. Those are the people who are available. But the reality is, if you are being deliberate about attracting a specific type of talent, imagine even a young boy or young man, let me not qualify as boy, a young man or a lady being a candidate at that interview. Some of the first things that come to their mind will be, why is it all men interviewing me? Now, for the younger folk, they will ask those questions also, be it male or female. So the possibility of even those 5 interviewers recruiting a female that is fit for the role, if they've not been trained specifically, may be very low. So one, you need to train your interviewers on unconscious biases, because it creeps up on us sometimes. I don't know how many of you saw this picture or video where some House of Rep members, now it's not Nigerian House of Rep members, but I think it was in America, they were conducting an interview with representatives of an airline, right? And the lady introduced herself as a captain. She was a pilot. And then the man on the panel went on to say, oh, how's your day usually as a air hostess? And the lady said, no, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a captain. I fly blah, blah, blah. He had to apologize and indicated that, oh, he wasn't thinking. He doesn't know why he thought about that, right? Sometimes we are not necessarily biased, but we sometimes have unconscious bias. So it's very important for you to train your interviewers. Imagine you're recruiting for a software development role or even an auditor role, right? An accountant. There's some people that have a perception that some roles are best suited for men. And if you do not train your interviewers to be a bit more receptive, now it may not even be gender. It could also be unconscious bias to people from a particular geographical extraction. Maybe when you were growing up, you were told that a certain set of people from one particular place, they are not trustworthy because of people's experience, your parents' experience with them. You carry that unconscious bias to the workplace and do not give people an opportunity based, once you see their name, you just say, where are you from? They tell you the state, you rule the person out, right? Another technique will be that you have structured interviews with standardized questions. Now, some people will say this seems to be restrictive, it boxes me in. We're not saying you may not ask some freelance questions, I call them freelance questions, but having structured interviews, especially when you have different hiring managers, different people on your interview panel, if you're going that route, might be suitable. We also have said panel interviews with diverse interviewers. This goes to my example where I said they were all men, number one. Number two, if I think back deeply, all of them, I'm sure, were in the same age bracket. You may say, what's the big deal there? Will I go and be looking for silent generation, millennial, just because I'm not saying that, but sometimes we need to have a mix of people, diverse from gender or race, ethnicity, religion, age, and all those things, and diversity of thought is also another one. So I've already stated, structure your interviews. You need to use scorecards. This goes into structured interviews. Evaluate candidates as a team. If you're using an applicant tracking system, do your best to put candidates at ease. You'll have candidates that are working, that are already on edge, which is why your interview panel should also be reflective of the diversity that your organization is preaching and the inclusive hiring practices. Avoid small talk. What school do you go to? Which school did you go to? I know that school. People from that school. What's that? I dated a girl from Calabar girls. What's that? That's already inferring and inserting conversations that are not necessary. Evaluate candidates in more context than just the interview. And then, of course, like we already said, set up a diverse panel. All right. So we're going on to the fourth one, which is having a, fair and transparent evaluation process. I'm trying to also make sure that I don't speak too fast, but I'm also conscious of time so that we can take questions at the end of the session. Having a fair and transparent evaluation process. So you've done the interview, right? You've done the physical interview. Now there are things you want to put in place to ensure that you evaluate. You have to first have originally established clear criteria for evaluation. Are you going to use the same criteria for candidate A? Samuel is going to use the same, they're going to use the same criteria for Samuel. They'll use the same criteria for Amina. They'll use the same criteria for Bola, or they'll use the same criteria for Thomas, right? Use blind recruitment techniques. Now, when we talk about blind recruitment techniques, we're basically saying some things that, how the image of, the image of justice, she's blind. So basically what it's saying is that not that you turn a blind eye to your recruitment, but that you are free of any bias whatsoever. Another one is provide feedback to all candidates promptly. You interviewed 20 people for the role. You found only 2 people who are fit for the next stage. Provide feedback to all candidates. And please, in your feedback communication, there is no need to overwrite or underwrite. Some of us want to write like a whole paragraph that insinuates that there are things. I saw a video on Instagram a few days ago. You may may not say it's an interview like we would have in the office, but this was someone who had gone for an audition. So it's an interview, and it was in the entertainment space. So I think that she was rejected, and the person felt that he needed to tell her the reason for her rejection, and went far as saying, oh, we really liked you, but you see, the role we want you to fill, the role we want to put you in, the person does not have a scar, and you have a scar. So this lady came online and was crying and was complaining that she was being rejected. Yes, rejected because of a scar. So in retrospect, could that hiring manager have just focused on, okay, we can't take you at this time, we're open to other roles in future, we'll reach out to you, blah, blah, blah. Why emphasize the scar and say because we do not have, the role does not have a scar? So the question that came to my mind is, couldn't they put makeup on it? But why even go into that detail? So in the will, you can see you monitor through check-ins and feedback. When we're talking about performance management, review, goal completion, that just shows you a cycle in terms of evaluation as a process. So these are the 4 key components when you're talking about, inclusive hiring practices. Now let's move on. Remember when I started talking, I said, when we're talking about, applying, adopting inclusive hiring practices, it's not just because it's a buzzword or it's a fancy thing to have. It's because, like we know now more than ever, we are dealing with a globalized workforce. Now, it's not until you hire somebody from Lebanon or you have staff in Kenya that indicates you are dealing with a globalized workforce. Some of us have personnel who are living in other countries and working with organizations. Some of us have personnel who go on holiday and who go on sabbatical, and they're joining meetings and all of that from a different country. The world is now a global village. So we are exploring recruitment, attraction on a different plane, right? You go on LinkedIn, you're connected to not only people in Nigeria, not only people in Lagos, you're connected to people around the world. People are jumping into your DMs and all of that, telling you about one product. They want to come do one demo. They want you to come speak at one event. They want to collaborate. They're looking for work and all of that. So having a globalized workforce might seem like a buzz, when we say it's just the buzz is in, but it is a buzz phrase for a reason, because according to the Francis Sciences PO, what we have is over 60,000 multinational companies in the world today. Multinational, not even other companies that are still in startup phase and all of that. Therefore, when you put that in mind, all companies, whether you're a multinational, you're a startup, you are 10 years in practice, you're a one-man business and all of that, you must take hiring of employees around the world very seriously. I've already indicated when I use the example that we have talent may have jackpot, or we are also doing the recruitment and people are jackpotting to Nigeria. You'll be surprised. It's not even about being surprised. There are many companies, some of us have had to do that, where we're recruiting people through Nigeria from different countries, right? So it's very important that because you are playing in that space of having a globalized workforce, that you emphasize your company's commitment to diversity inclusion. These are the things that anybody is looking forward to now. When people go on your website or ask questions from your previous, past employees, they're asking questions like, what is your workforce like? What is your culture? It's not even so much focused on training. Years ago, when you want to go to a company, the question was, do they train you? Do you go on trainings? Do you go on international workshop and all those things? It's changed. The game has changed. What people want to know is, will my voice be heard? Will I be allowed to participate in decision-making? Wellness and well-being, is it something that you take serious? Will I be given adequate days off? Will my voice be heard? Will I belong? These are the things that fall under diversity and inclusion. Oh, who is the CEO? what has been the pattern of leadership in the past XY number of years? Your leadership team, your senior management team, your executive management, what is the balance or the mix of male and female? These are the questions, right? It's also important that when you want to attract global talent, you are offering flexible work arrangements. This cannot be overemphasized. I was talking to a fellow HR practitioner at an event on Tuesday, and some others were talking about they needed to get back to the office and all of that. And she said they are full remote, right? All of us on this call may not be participating or enjoying. It depends on which side of the divide you are. Some feel that full remote is enjoyment. Some feel that it's too much pressure and all of that. Flexible work arrangements is one of the key things that everybody is looking out for now. Whether it is full remote, it is hybrid, is that the facility to log in from anywhere, or I have days I can come in at a certain time, I can close at a certain time, I clock in my hours and I'm done, right? These are things you need to consider. You also need to communicate your company's values. And of course, potential opportunities for advancement. Advancement, training and development is a key thing, but advancement also in terms of how do I move from one spot to the other? What are the requisite skills? What are the things that the organization will help me achieve as long as we're aligned in achieving that? Now, another key part of childcare resources. Gone were the days where, you now have more women in the workforce, and even also single fathers that their husbands that their wives are maybe going back to school, different stages you may be in your household, right? There is more focus on how do I take care of my children. We used to have years ago uncles, aunties, cousins, nephews that will live with us and take care of us when we're kids. But that has changed. The society been evolving over the years. So you rarely have such people that can raise your children. We're also in the age era where people are a bit more conscious of abuse on the kids. So they won't leave their children anywhere. So most times you're looking for an organization that allow you the flexibility of maybe a crèche, especially when you're just returning back to work, or even an after school service being offered by organizations. These are things you need to start looking out for when you're talking of global talent. We've dealt with recruiting or hiring anybody from the abroad, as we usually call it. One of the first things they'll be negotiating for is the schools their kids will be put in, specific things that the children need, because when your children are catered for, you're able to give your all. Remember that in a company I worked with years ago, 2 instances. One, I recruited somebody that came from Uganda. She had to come with her kids back to Nigeria. She had not been in Nigeria for years. We sometimes think that she be a Nigerian, but she's not been in Nigeria for years, so she didn't have a house here. She needed to relate with her kids. We went above and beyond to ensure that we got an apartment, gave her a list of possible schools that she could search for and check out. Some form of native support where somebody for the first 1 week was sort of helping her with food selections and all of that. And it's one of the success stories that she still says, made her coming into Nigeria very easy. The other story was another man. Now you may say, he's a man now. Why is it so much? He came from the UK then, but his wife and kids were not here in Nigeria. And I think by the 3rd month, one of his child was sickly, needed some specific care. He had to resign at some point, in the 3rd month, because he realized that he needed to go take care of the child. There was no support for him in his mind, and there was no support presented to him that he could bring the child and all of that. Highlighting non-work benefits. Now, something as simple as indicating that, you have people who like to swim, who like to join a motorbike community. I'm sure you see a lot of them, bicycle, cycling, They like to go hiking. Some of those things, highlighting those, they're not work benefits, but they have, maybe, oh, our office is close to a gym that can offer you XYZ service. A friend's husband recently relocated to another country. We call him Ajala Traveler. He is a global citizen. And one of his sports is he loves to cycle. So within the first week of his arrival in the new country, he was looking out for another community of cyclists, because that's what typically, what endears him to that community and all of that. So imagine as a HR manager or hiring man, yes, golfers. Thank you very much, Sheyi. Golfers also, thank you. In fact, that's a fantastic example, and I have a story for that. So imagine if you know all the expectations of some of the things you can throw in as an exciting add-on for your potential staff. Golfers, I have he's a brother-in-law. They golf. He plays golf. He lives in Lokoja, and his brother works in Lagos. So he and my cousin were coming from Abuja, and immediately they landed in Lagos. The first thing they went to do was, sis, I'm going to play golf for how many hours? I want to see the golf course in Lagos here in Ikeja. Those kind of things are things that you can think out of the box and offer. So I've said it could be a sport, it could be hiking, it could be gym, it could be even schools for their children, because you may not have particular access or control over that. So these are some of the things you need to put in place or think about when you are talking about attracting global talent. All right. So how then do we foster inclusive workplace cultures? We've been talking about inclusivity, even though with a diverse pool. We've been talking about components of inclusive hiring. How do we now foster? Because I will keep saying this. A lot of people are so focused on ticking the boxes. You're focused on, oh, they said that we must have a certain percentage of people living with disabilities within the organization. I'm just ticking the boxes for the fun of it. Oh, I'm trying to hit 50-50 male-female ratio in the organization. So at interviews, they're just looking for women to come in, whether they have merit or they don't have merit, but they come in and they do not feel included in the conversation. You have not created a safe space for both women or men to thrive well, right? So it's not enough to say, I am practicing diversity. How do you foster? One, you have employee resource groups and diversity councils. These are more prominent in many countries in Europe, where you have a I like Sheyi is just giving me, Sheyi said dance class. Yes, that's one. Some people like to dance. Reading clubs, fantastic. So imagine you are trying to hire HR storyteller, and then that she likes to read, she likes to write. Imagine you now tell me that she's relocating to France, and the place that I'm relocating to, you want me to feel like I'm a part of a community, and you sell that to me. Thank you very much, everybody, for jumping in on that. So I was talking about fostering an inclusive workplace culture. And I said one of the first things that it is good to set up an employee resource group and diversity council. One of the benefits of doing this is that you may not see everything. You may not have access to all the information, but these people, these types of groups and councils are focused on deliberately ensuring that we are able to bring a diverse workforce in, we're able to maintain, and we are able to ensure that they have access to sharing their complaints, their issues, and tabling that back so that we are continuously invested in their well-being, wellness, and all the things that we would like to qualify. Now, another thing is, you can't just say we're practicing diversity and inclusion, and then your managers, your employees, your senior management team, they do not understand why at a meeting there are some words they need to use and some words they cannot use. Why your managers are at a meeting and they just break into Yoruba. Meanwhile, not everybody in the meeting speaks Yoruba or understands Yoruba. What you've done is you've excluded a certain number of people from the conversation, even though you might not be insulting, you might not be referencing them in any way. But what has happened is that people already just feel like, I'm missing out on this gist. And I have real life examples of this. I remember training some members of an organization. I was at their management retreat and I was talking about, I tried this some years ago, but it had to do with communication and team building and all of that. And one of the men spoke up because I gave them an opportunity to just share examples. And it was such a profound moment because he now said that many times, if I was such a funny thing, he's from the Southeast, right? And he said he was transferred to the Lagos office and he was now in an office with like 3 other people. And then goes to say, any small thing, bati. So even though people burst into laughter, it was the first time he actually was explaining to his colleagues that he didn't have any issue with them, but he always felt like he was being excluded from the conversation and he had to play catch up. You know, some of us would say things like, how many years have you lived in Lagos? You should be able to speak Yoruba by now. I beg. Or, you know, you go far north or you go to the east. These are things you must be deliberate in. So our personnel, our employees need continuous training when we're talking about diversity and inclusion. What are the things you need to be careful with in saying? What are the things that will, you know, indicate that you have a bias or that it may just be unconscious bias? I'm sure most of you know this story. Many people use it many times where, you know, you're at a meeting. In fact, this has happened. This is not they say, beyond they say. It has happened in front of me before where we're at a meeting. There's another young lady in the room, some other young men and many people. And the CEO was indicating that somebody should take minutes. And like in fact, you know, when they say they just drop a bomb, the young man just quickly looked at the lady and said, you can do it. And I said, why? And his response, you will know, was something from an unconscious bias, was, you know, you women write better. I don't know where they wrote that one, right? So you need to provide training for that group. I'm spending a lot of time in that area because a lot of times we don't know the importance of ongoing training. It's not enough to just go for one session, say you've ticked the box, we now practice diversity and inclusion. No, you must continuously and consistently talk about it. And of course, inclusive leadership and management practices, as we always say, it starts from the top. So imagine that as an organization, you are pushing, you are striving and saying that you are trying to hit a certain number of, let's use gender. Gender seems to be the one that is always prevalent. And you don't have that representation at the senior level. Or you're talking about, we are a diverse and inclusive organization. We attract people of different ages and they look at your different strata of staff. All the people at your senior management level. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, we must give honor to who honor is due in terms of learning, knowledge, and all of that. But you should have a good mix of people from gender to diversity of thought and even age, so that some things you are seeing from a different perspective, you may see a different color. And that's why organizations now, you see that you even have some Gen Zs at level of COOs and all of that, depending on the expertise and experience they bring to the board. These are some of the ways we can ensure that we're fostering an inclusive workplace culture. Thumbs, can I see some thumbs in the chat box? We'll soon start rounding up just to be sure that I am not speaking to myself. You could clap, you could do a thumbs up, whatever you want. Thank you, Ozioma. Yes, I see you, Dami, Lucy. Thank you very much. Josephine, where are my guys? I'm seeing Jessica, Debola, okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Femi, awesome. Chima, awesome. All right, let's move along. So I talked about some case studies, just some companies, you can read more on them. But these are some companies that, you know, when we're talking about inclusive hiring practices, they come to mind. I got a company called Organogram. They are based in Magodo. I was trying to look for their logo. This is feedback to them too. So they are a company that specializes in developing innovative software solutions for different industries. Now, because they recognize the importance of diversity and inclusion, one of the things they've done, they've of course implemented a comprehensive and successful inclusive hiring strategy. So they, like many of us, sometimes use interns, corpers, and a handful of them are retained. Many of us do it because some of us are unconsciously, you know, practicing inclusive hiring. But now we want you to be a bit more deliberate. We want you to be a bit more focused on it, right? And depending on the ones that perform well, that's back to Organogram. If they find them to be a good fit, they retain them. They also utilize something called the JIT Hub, GIT Hub, you know, which is a open source community for over 100 million software developers. And one of the things they do is that they showcase their work, they collaborate with them, and from there, having access to this huge pool. Imagine having access to 100 million software developers that you can throw work to at different points in time. What it affords you is an opportunity to have a wide and diverse range of people. So you can hire from Asia, you can hire from Africa, you can hire from different continents and have a good mix of people. So that was for Organogram. Like I said, it's feedback. I'm going to look for their and tell them that I didn't see their logo. Maybe there's even an Organogram staff on this call. Oracle. Now, I'm sure we all know the company called Oracle, and their global talent acquisition approach, you know, also serves as a compelling example of how all organizations, we can effectively identify, you can attract, you can hire top talent. Remember our keywords before, to drive innovation, drive growth, and business success. And how do they do that? They adopt a strategic, inclusive, data-driven approach, which puts into consideration employer branding, diverse sourcing, all the unique things we talk about, fair selection processes. And in Oracle's case, they do free boot camps and training online. The link below is one of such accesses to their resources, where they have free training online and people can participate. And the people that do well in these trainings and their free boot camps, it's also an opportunity for them to now offer them with roles at Oracle. Okay? The last one in my example, you can always go and read up more on it and just see some of the things, is a company called Diageo. I'm sure most of us know Diageo. They're the global leaders. They're considered global leaders with Guinness, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, and our favorite Baileys. You know, most of my ladies like Baileys. Yeah. Okay, Shei's giving me, he says they do exchange programs. Fantastic. Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, and Baileys. And the company is committed in ensuring that they create an inclusive workplace culture that, of course, values diversity that we're talking about, belonging, drives innovation. And a typical example, I wrote something down. So their current MD, who is one of the MD in Serengeti, Tanzania, used to be an assistant brand manager. So one of the things that Diageo does is that they partner, they actually go into top firms and they sort of look for specific people that have worked in similar spaces, but are bringing a unique set of skills and diversity of thought from a different, what they call it, ethnic, racial extraction. So the current MD in Serengeti, he used to be an assistant brand manager at Knorr, you know, Knorr, Noah and Maggie, 2006. He went on to becoming the brand manager at Onga, then was the MD Guinness in Nigeria, became the commercial director Guinness Ghana before he became the MD Tanzania. So one of the things that Diageo uses is top firms, moves people around, and it's some approach in having a mix of, inclusive, being deliberate, inclusive hiring. So I am concluding, and I think that in closing, the key takeaways for everybody on this in this session will be that, of course, we've stated that inclusive hiring, it plays a very critical role in any organization's success because you're able to attract top talent, creativity, and innovation. You see, I keep saying it because you have a broad spectrum of people you can hire from, and you also are showcasing that you are hiring people, you are attracting people because you are applying inclusive hiring practices. And so when we prioritize diversity and inclusion in our hiring practices, we automatically unlock full potential of our workforce. You will drive sustainable growth and profitability. And this cuts across your employees, your customers, and stakeholders alike. In the era we're in, where we have technology advancements, we're talking about machine learning, AI, we're talking about ChatGPT and all of that. It means that the pace of technology is moving. When we talk about rapidly changing business environment, we all know that there's so many factors that come into play when your business environment gets changed, right? So we have globalization. We spoke about attracting global talent, evolving customer expectations. Customers have high expectations. It's changing every day. Back in the day, a customer might be satisfied with just addressing him or her, thank you, sir, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. It's gone beyond that. You promised me a particular type of service. It goes beyond even that service. There's more attached to that now. Service delivery has moved beyond that, right? So organizations that prioritize continuous improvement and adaptation are better positioned to innovate, grow, and of course, maintain a competitive edge. So I would say and leave you with this: please do not wait for the right time. Don't say, in 2025, that's when my organization wants to start all these things. Start now. Some of you may have started unconsciously. You now need to take a step back and review. Start now. And with that, I've come to the end. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. It is indeed very insightful. We say thank you. Please, could you help us appreciate Ms. Kemi Shonubi, please, with your emojis, with your clapping emojis. Thank you very much, ma'am. We'll say thank you for this session. If you have questions to ask, please put it in the chat box. And if you also have contribution, please share your contributions also. But before we go to the question and answer, I'd like to just mention one or two things I am taking away. I know most of us have a lot of things we are taking away from here, so please share it in the chat box too. For me, I have that inclusive hiring practices enhances creativity and innovation. It also improves decision making. It increases employee engagement and retention. And finally, it gives better understanding of the diverse market. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for this. It was truly, truly informative. So let's go into the question and answer section. Please, if you have any question, please put it in the chat box. And if you feel like talking, you can raise your hand and we unmute you to give your contribution or ask any question you have to ask. The attendance link has been put up in the chat box. We all need to register our attendance in the link. So please enter the link and register your name in the attendance. Thank you. Do we have questions to ask? Somebody says that I love her simplicity of delivery. No unnecessary grammar. Thank you very much, ma'am. Somebody's appreciating you.
Thank you very much.
I
saw that. Thank you.
You didn't blow too much grammar. You were concise. You were straight to the point. Thank you very much. Another person said he came handy and very insightful. Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate you. Do you have questions, please? If you have contribution to, it might not necessarily be a question. If you have taken anything away from this, you could just share with us.
Somebody's hand is raised up. Somebody's hand.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. So please, can you speak? Unmute yourself and speak.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kemi. Wonderful delivery. I want to add to all that you said. It's so unfortunate that many HRO professionals are still guilty of this diversity issue. It was very, very repulsive for me as an individual. Oh, sorry. My name is Idoni Jojamahia. I remember that I'm hiding under HROP account. Okay, I said it was very, very repulsive for me as an individual when that recent case of KFC and Gbenga Daniel's son came out. It was very, hearing what the lady was saying, the one who was just, it was just so painful that in this modern day and age, somebody could say such a thing. Talk more from a company, a world-renowned company, saying that no wheelchair is allowed in their establishment. So if it was not Gbenga Daniel's son, what would have happened? And this is an environment that pride itself as a world-class organization, and people are proud to say that they work in such an organization. If I really felt ashamed for them as an individual, hearing this from them. And coming back home, we have cases of several organizations where we have HRO professionals that are actually practicing all these things. And I know that one of the creeds of CIPM is that if resignation is an option, you take it. But unfortunately, we have it. Now, we still see adverts where people hide under gender balance to promote. So they will say, okay, just we are hiring this for gender balance, right? Stated in their adverts. You still see several things. You still hear about so many things that are just. So I believe that charity needs to begin from home. We need to start doing a self-reflection. Let's reflect on ourselves as individuals. Are we really practicing what we are preaching? I leave that for everyone to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback, and I also like the fact that you even reminded us the more recent incident at the airport. It was quite bothersome. I know that there are many people that believe that, okay, maybe we're getting action because it's somebody's son, but I want people to also remember that if he did not say anything, we may not even know what happened. So the lesson for me, and I usually tell people is, let's speak up, articulate our feedback. But more importantly, in that example was that if you read the response from the company when they were caught, when there was a court, they claim they want to do sensitivity training. So the question or the point, and I think the call you are also making is, we all need to be deliberate. If we believe our organizations are lacking in training, let's make it a concept. And it's not training for training purposes. You have to be deliberate if you want beautiful results. How are you having conversations with your managers? What are the ways that they talk? Do you catch a certain way that something they say in a conversation and you point out immediately that that thing is wrong? Thank you for reminding us of that. I think I saw a question. Albert, you said some roles require particular gender. I think I saw that in the
Yes, he's
Yeah.
asking, he said that I have a bit of concern on the gender bias hiring. There are certain roles where you need a particular gender to fill for the sake of sensitivity from the client. Does it mean one cannot be specific when putting up the job adverts?
Well, my thoughts on that. So, unless you are telling me one of the roles you'll be hiring for is, let's say, let me look for, it would be good if Albert can share, but no problem. Let me give you some suggestions. Maybe you're hiring for a FMCG or, yeah, and they need workers on the plant. I know that most times many companies have a preference to men. Some will say because of heavy lifting and working at night and all those things. There's a school of thought that says the world has changed. There are women who are doing some of those roles, but no problem. Now, instead of specifying we are looking for male only, you could also in the job description sort of give an idea of what the job entails, right? You know, it will be a factory worker that is required to work XY number of hours and what have you. Now, if it comes to you sourcing, I mean screening, you can either screen out at the level of screening out, or even when you meet the person and you engage, unless the role that you are referencing is entirely different to any of the ones I've listed. You said maybe sensitivity of the client. I know that some clients may have a preference. For example, a CEO may be recruiting for an EA, and he or she requests for a particular gender. In my opinion, you may not necessarily need to put that specific criteria out there. Let's not be lazy. You will get CVs, you get referrals. You have what's the English now? You have the liberty of screening out and engaging such people to even know that, because if you focus so much on those things and put it in your JD already, you may be passing a message about the brand they are trying to advertise for, which is wrong. I don't know. I hope that helps you. I don't know if I have other questions or comments.
Thank you very much, man. You have other questions. But before I read out the other question, somebody put up his hand before now, Philip Fasoya. I don't know if he's still there to speak, though he has dropped his hand. But if you are there to speak, please, you can still go ahead. Albert is raising his hand. Is Philip there? Okay. Albert, please, can you unmute yourself and speak?
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your insightful session. It's very, very impactful.
Albert, you need to speak up a bit louder. You are very faint. It's very faint.
Okay, so I said I just want to appreciate you first for this session. It's quite very, very impactful. So the reason I asked the question is I work in the health sector, and sometimes there are certain diagnoses, certain tests you want to run, which are gender specific. And certain people would not want a particular gender to carry out such a diagnosis on them. And as such, you want to balance, you want to balance the number of staff you have who can take certain tests. So when you're putting out adverts, for example, there are certain tests that are maybe female specific, and you want to say, yes, we are hiring a female scientist on this, and that. You want to go straight to the point so that you don't have different kind of CVs coming in. So is it possible for one to be specific to say, yes, I want a female scientist on this area of, I don't know if that works.
Yeah. So please, ladies and gentlemen, we are not, well, it may seem that you're speaking from two sides of one's mouth, but I am not necessarily saying that sometimes qualifying your job descriptions, especially if you want to reduce the pool of candidates you want to have access to, And in the example you gave, there may be instances where you need to qualify, but it shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be that all your job descriptions, you just have a general template that you use permanently and that's it. I don't know if you understand. From time to time, you may need to upgrade, you may need to tweak. It may be that you just send out a job description to a very small pool of people. And if the big companies, like the example I gave where I said one of the oil and gas companies was specifically looking for a certain class of potential employees, that was mentioned. I know one of the banks recently that launched this, there's something they launched recently which was targeted at stay-at-home mothers, right? So even when they announced it, they made a buzz and everything around specific category of people. So I'm not necessarily saying chalk it out, but I'm saying let's be a bit more in tune and deliberate. Some of us just have generic job descriptions. Like I use the examples. We're looking for a competitive, assertive, ambitious, and all of that. Meanwhile, you have a brief that does not restrict you to men or female, male or female, but you have unconsciously removed a particular set of people from the race. Does that help? So I agree with you in your diagnostic lab. You may be looking to replace some female employees. You may, because you don't want to just have a surge of CVs qualified that, you know, after the job description, which is focusing more on the skills and what do you call it, knowledge and all of that, maybe just a liner that indicates at this time, we would want to fill the role, something like that. But it shouldn't be that the whole job description is just focused without any structure inserted. I hope that helps you. If anybody wants to add to that, for me, I do not mind. Any other questions? I think there's some questions though.
Okay, there are questions here. Thank you very much for the response. There's another question here that says, how do we get to train panelists on proper interviewing, especially when there are different skill sets and hiring managers part-time?
Yeah, it's not as if you will train them before the interview. Over time, it's part of the trainings that you need to start setting as a training plan for your organization. Most of us know the hiring managers. We all know teams of people who will usually sit in interviews at different points in time. What's stopping you from either calling all of them together, organizing a training, either you do it yourself or you get a facilitator to come talk about diversity and inclusion, especially in recruitment, especially in retention, especially with engagement. There's nothing stopping you. So we're not saying you should train people before. It's an ongoing conversation. I'll use an example. One of the departments in our organization, I won't mention the name of the department. When I joined, you know, so many people that know me know that I will always advocate at every conversation for some level of diversity. I look out for people, oh, you're not allowing this person, you know, that kind of thing. So, and of course, I'm a DEIB specialist, right? With training. So this department, I just noticed that they were all guys, all men in the department. And if all of them were from the same, what's the word? Ethnic extraction. And then apart from the leader in the team, all of them were in the same age bracket. So when you're sitting in meetings with them, you kind of have a sense, and we say in my, you know, when you put your head in the same place, when you sleep, you wake up almost, you know, everybody's thinking the same thing. You know, we talk about group think. So the first day I approached the subject and I said, you don't have X, Y, you know, you don't have a female on your team, you don't have female. The first response was, you know, women, this job we do, we travel a lot, we do this, we do that. I let them finish. I said, Before I got married, I used to travel. And this job, I've done it also at some point in my career. That should not be the reason why you are not letting such, you're not allowing or rather hiring females, part one. Part two, the other roles even within the department, there are many here who may also not be interested in traveling. So don't even bring that up. After a few months of engaging them, discussing reasons why we need to do this, I will tell you today, I'm so proud of them. They have onboarded 2 ladies into the department. So they will come and meet me and say, Ma, we've done it. So, for them, it might seem like they're ticking the box, but there's also a consciousness coming to them that these things are needed. All right. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you very much, ma'am. There is another hand raised here by Adeo Olojede. Please, can you please unmute yourself and speak?
Okay, thank you. Correction, please. My name is Adeyinka Olojede.
But it's not fully written here. Noted.
Okay.
I've noted that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kemi. It's always a delight listening to you and watching you talk. You bring a lot to the table and it's well appreciated. Please, I just want to clarify, like the the feel I get from what you have shared with us is when you're looking at a structured environment with a professional HR, managing the people management and everything of an organization. But, in reality, you usually have even big organizations that people manning their human resource departments are not even certified, talk less of actually knowing what is involved in all these things that you're saying. And sometimes when you even have an HR that is a professional, you'll find out that the business owners, they're used to certain kind of way, of doing things. How do you marry this? How are you able, maybe if you're the one managing, probably the GM or the HR person there, how do you bring all these things in? I can just give you an example. I worked in a place where they prefer to get interns, coppers, and the nature of the job that they do is, you need the experience. You have to come to the organization, hit the ground running. But because they want to pay 70,000, 100,000, they go in search of, interns. And immediately they come in, there are a lot of, oh, you're not competent, you're not this, you're not that, you're not this, you're not that, So at a point I had to tell the MD, I said, sir, this strategy might have worked for you in the past, but like where the organization is right now, this strategy is not working. You need experience and, so how would you advise somebody, to be able to bring in this change into the workplace, and be able to actually do inclusive hiring? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm grateful for the question and the feedback. I will start off by saying you've answered the question partially. You see, HR is not for people who don't have courage. And our courage is not that you go and be fighting every day, but you require a certain level of courage, emotional intelligence, and grit, right? You already mentioned that you had observed, and I'm sure there are many things you looked at. You looked at, maybe you did a training needs analysis or gaps analysis when these interns or coppers came. You didn't just go to your manager or rather the MD saying, I don't think this is working. You must have used examples, inferences, and all of that in making your point. Now, what I recommend to everybody sometimes is, or most times, is please let us leverage data in making our submissions. Whether you are reporting directly to the CEO, you are reporting to a COO, you are reporting to a head of HR, or whatever level you are at. And then this thing takes time in growing capacity and experience. You need to start learning how to communicate your findings. Your findings shouldn't always be based on emotions or I think these people are not doing this. I think we should be doing inclusive hiring. Nobody's going to stop you from refining your JDs depending on the level you are in within the organization. And let's assume you report into a head of HR who's been doing this the same. Our JDs, no problem. Bring it up when you've gotten some information saying that, okay, I was looking, ma or sir, at the last set of people we brought in. Now, maybe you have a graduate training program, or you have a maybe you're hiring business analysts, or young people that I'm just clarifying this, and you brought them in a group, and you notice a trend that you either sat at the interviews, as a HR person, if you sit in interviews, if you train yourself, you begin to see groupthink at interviews, where other panel members say the same thing, and it's in your notes. That's evidence one, where all the panelists are saying the exact same thing about a candidate. That already tells you that it's possible they're all saying the same thing. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's possible there's a unconscious bias. You notice that you had 20 interviewees that day, 19 of them were men, maybe one is female, and the one maybe was somewhat competent but didn't make it. These are some of the things you need to start putting together. Do not go and just say, I think we know. What are the reasons that you think we should explore this? And like someone rightly mentioned, as licensed practitioners under CIPM, it states there in our oath of office, right? When we read the oath, that you may get to a point where you may need to, depending on if it goes beyond what we're talking about, if there's something that is happening that goes against our training as HR practitioners, you are ready to resign. But I'm saying that before going into meetings with your superiors and all of that, let us make sure that we are doing the work in getting the information and presenting it. Now, it's not all your... Now, when I do trainings like this, I'm always very cautious to also say, don't just go and say, she told us we must do it as an organization. You are all at different stages in your careers, in your organizations. Your organizations are different phases of growth. Some of the things we've said today, it may be a very small part of it that you implement. It doesn't need to be this grand thing, because your organization may not be at that stage of growth. So that is how I would first respond to you. If you need more ideas, please, you can reach out to me also personally. I'm always open to sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Oluwatoyin Adekute Akapo also contributed that endeavor to make personal decisions after considering all options, of which resignation may be one, in defense of this code of conduct, where there are conflicts between my professional obligation and the expectations of my job roles. That was a contribution from Oluwatoyin.
Fantastic, Toyin. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's the quote. I'm going to learn how to be saying it to myself verbatim.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We really appreciate your insightful session. Your answering of the questions, it was on point. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any other question? Okay, in the absence of none, I'd like to say the link for the attendance is in the chat box. Let us submit our attendance. And I also like to let us know that the session has been pre-approved for 3 global HR recertification units. If we have any HRCI certification, we can request for the certificates. For members, it is 4,000 Naira, while non-member is 5,000 Naira. The link is in the chat box there for the request for the certificates. If you are interested, please log in and register. So at this point, I'd like to call on Ms. Toyin for any form of announcements, if there are announcements to make. Are there no announcements?
Hello, Biageri. So the
Hello.
announcement will be from your department, will be from your unit. So the next training session will be coming on the 20th of April. And I'm excited to also share with us that the mentoring program will be kicking off from Monday, 8th of April. Sorry, Monday, 8th of April. Yes, 2024. So the mentees and mentors would start their 100 days journey of mentorship. I'm sure everyone is excited about it. So the next training session will be coming on 20th of April. And we also have our KSS is in plan, while we have the annual conference. The flyer had been sent out. Let's all plan towards it. The fee is 60,000 naira. So let us prepare and ensure that we are in attendance for these learning sessions. That will be all from my side. I will hand it over to Biageri, our honorable moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the announcement. Thank you, madam. I'd like to call on the global president for the closing remark.
All right, thank you so much, Kemi. This has been an amazing session, and Obiageri, also thank you for being an amazing moderator. I just want to encourage everyone, let's apply the learnings and let's see how we can become better HR practitioners. Also, to reemphasize the portion of the CIPM Code of Conduct that Tony shared, I think that was emphasized, and I believe that as we practice what we preach, we'll be able to add value to the profession. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, the management team, and every member of HRP, once again, we extend our profound gratitude to Kemi Shonubi for this amazing session. Obiageri, back to you to close.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm grateful.
Thank you, our global president. Thanks for the remark. At this point, I'd like to say thanks to everyone that participated. And to our moderator, your presentation was wonderful. It was informative. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. So at this point, I'd like to say next week will be another insightful session.
2 weeks.
Oh, in the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much. And the next 2 weeks, we'll have another insightful session. Thank you all for participating tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all. Bye.